So today is the 25th of March and really day 3 of Boris's lockdown. And like everyone else, I'm working from home and really enjoying this fantastic weather. If it wasn't for the horrible things going on in the world at the moment and obviously the economic meltdown which seems to be taking place, it would seem everything's right with the world. The sun's out, everything's coming back into bloom, and in that case of the floods, they seem long distant in the past. Certainly we had a lot of flooding in the area where I live. So I thought I'd give you just an update really on what I see about what's happening out and about in the financial services industry. Probably because I speak to so many people across the industry, I might be able to give you a unique perspective about that. Clearly, this isn't going to be about recruitment today. Recruitment is the last thing on most people's mind at this crucial time. We have communicated with all our clients. We've got all our staff at home, working from home now, and we're doing all the usual things like Zoom videos, etc. And who knew about those only a few weeks ago? What I would say is this. We deal with all different sizes of financial services companies, from the largest global asset managers through the product providers, platform companies, wealth managers, and down IFAs and everyone else in between. They all have different perspectives on what is actually happening at the moment. The key thing for everyone was to get people working from home. And so while a lot of businesses already had a lot of people working from home, I think it'd be fair to say that the larger product providers and asset managers certainly needed to take some action, and quite quickly. From what I've seen, the ones that had the greatest challenges have still managed it in the main, perhaps with only sort of vital IT staff and people remaining in the business. Everyone else working from home. Of course, a lot of financial advisors work from home, and a lot of sales directors, sales managers, etc. work from home. And of course, that's a big part of the work we normally do. On the large asset managers and product provider side, and I suppose the investment platform players as well, the biggest challenge has been getting as many people out of their various offices as possible and working from home. So whereas most of their salespeople and a number of others would have worked at home, certainly there were a lot of people based in the offices. The experience, I've spoken to different people, has varied tremendously. You go to the small IFA where people working on desktops are now working from their own laptops, to the larger provider where they had quite desk-based systems that they had to move quickly on. I spoke to one product provider and they said that they were fortunate in that a few months ago they purchased laptops for everybody in the company, which enabled them to move their, I think it was about 100 and something people out quite quickly, whereas up to that point probably only about 40 or so had laptops. But by the time the lockdown came in, everyone had one. You speak to other people, and of course the big problem was there was a massive shortage of laptops going into this period because people perhaps didn't anticipate it. And I know I've spoken to one company where they had 900 staff in the head office, and by the end of one of the days this week, they had to get that down to 15, and yet they had the challenge they didn't actually at that stage have the technology for everyone to work from home. So they faced the challenge of having home, set everyone else up at home, but not having the technology in place to do it. And that's something that happens with businesses with legacy systems, as many of you will know. On the other hand, most of the wealth managers have adapted quite easily from what I can see. As well as working from home, there's been various other things going on. So for instance, the protection providers are telling me that they've had absolute bumper days, both in terms of proposals and also in terms of completions. A lot of people have been probably bringing forward proposals and work that needed to be done but hadn't quite been expected to move so quickly. Nevertheless, the protection market has had its challenges, where some of the online protection players apparently tried to do heavy promotions about taking out life insurance to protect you from Covid-19. And that was something that the regulators stepped on very quickly. The protection providers have to be careful, of course, because they've got the issue of a lot of people taking life insurance out at a time like this, life protection and particularly income protection, and then potentially cancelling it afterwards. And there's also the issue of selection. While selection is unlikely to go against them in the long term, in the short term you need to be really careful. So they have particular challenges in that market. Some of the asset managers are obviously doing better than others, depending on what their big emphasis is at the moment. And of course, many of the investment funds have taken an absolute tanking, which on top of the earlier issues earlier in the year and last year won't help the asset management industry much. One of the big issues for many people is that if you have some sort of income based on assets under management, which would include all the asset managers, wealth managers, etc., you know that for the moment you're going to have reduced income coming through, and yet at the same time you've probably got more stresses and strains on you than ever before. On the other hand, another part of the market which is really important is going to be the survival of IFAs, financial planners and wealth managers who are used to giving face-to-face advice, and suddenly they have to give that advice, or they will intend to give that advice, over the phone. Most seem to think that dealing with ongoing advice won't be a major issue, certainly in the short term, although they're very worried about commoditisation of financial advice in the long term. If people start to realise that advice can be given over the phone, and there becomes perhaps more emphasis on low-cost advice, then there is potential for clients to say, actually, I don't want to pay you 1% a year advice fee when I can pay 0.25% or something like that to an online provider, or maybe self-serve. So I think there will be a big emphasis for the wealth management community to demonstrate value added by face-to-face. And at the end of this, a lot of them are already making sure that they will get out to see their clients as fast as possible. On the other hand, if you are highly new business oriented, so a lot of the sort of more growing IFAs and wealth managers, their challenge will be that there's unlikely to be much new business or new relationships built with clients during this period. It's one thing to go and do an annual review with someone by telephone or video conference. It's a totally different thing to try and do a first call or do new business with somebody that has never met you. So we can see the word we probably didn't know about a few weeks ago, furlough, being really big in the financial advice community, particularly in those sort of self-employed type advisors, which are basically relying on growth to fund their machine. Of course, many of the longer established wealth and financial planning businesses will be fine. They have a good level of income, they have a strong position in the community, and that it will continue. Likewise, anyone connected with a professional practice that we're speaking to seems to feel that this will be really good for them. The demand for financial planning is definitely there and will continue, and is unlikely to change due to this hopefully relatively short-term problem. So that's a bit of a jog round the financial services industry from my point of view. I hope you found that useful. We remain open as usual.